At the death of the Prophet Mohammed in 632, his followers led dazzling military conquests. In order to establish their legitimacy, the objective was set: to take Jerusalem, to impose themselves at any cost in the holy city of Jews and Christians. One man will leave his mark on the city: Caliph al-Malik of the Umayyad dynasty. A great strategist, he decided at the end of the 7th century to build a massive monument, brilliant, intriguing, and capable of creating a visual shock: the Dome of the Rock.
One of the functions of this building is for it to be seen from a distance, to be a focal point. It was the highest building in the Holy City, and then this gold coating made it shine. The testimonies are innumerable since the end of the 7th century on the magnificence of this building.
In Jerusalem, Islam is a new religion. Caliph al-Malik deliberately orders the construction of the Dome of the Rock at a specific location. It overlooks the two sacred monuments of Christians and Jews: the Holy Sepulchre, the tomb of Jesus, and the Wailing Wall, the remains of Solomon's temple.
al-Malik wanted this place to be the most beautiful, if I may use that expression, in all of Jerusalem, in relation to the new religion that had entered the city. Of course, this city had its history before the arrival of Islam, and Islam was aware of it. But from the point of view of Islam, and also I think from Abd al-Malik's point of view, we built this space as a message for Muslims, but also for other religions.
This message is for everyone. Here, men and women mix, contrary to the rule observed in all mosques. Because, surprisingly, this essential monument in the history of Islam is not a mosque. For Caliph Abd al-Malik, the Dome of the Rock serves above all to deliver a message to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, Jews and Christians alike. It is part of a vast enterprise of seduction. It's a powerful proselytizing tool to get the new religion and its Prophet Mohammed admitted. On the interior walls, mosaics with discrete inscriptions are embedded in the elements of the decor. A text written in Kufic, one of the oldest forms of Arabic writing, over a length of 240 meters, surrounds the construction. The message reveals the meaning of the monument, directly addressed to the Jews and Christians, known here as the people of the book.
People of the book, do not exaggerate your religion. Say about God only the truth, that the Messiah Jesus is only the Son of Mary, and that he was only God's messenger.
These inscriptions are fascinating because it's a text which is strictly addressed to Jews and Christians. First of all, by evoking the figure of Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus, son of Mary, to emphasize his prophetic role. Jesus is one of the greatest prophets in the chain of prophets, one of the greatest prophets of Islam. And at the same time, Jesus is only a prophet. Jesus is not the Son of God.
This message inscribed Islam as the third monotheism. The monument is built around an extremely symbolic rock. According to tradition, it is on this rock that Abraham intended to sacrifice his son Isaac.
It's a bare rock. We can see the bedrock, so it's not soil, nor is it earth. It's the bedrock that's there, like all the rock outcrops in Jerusalem, to witness the origins of an original story.
In a cave under the rock, the Muslim faithful come to pray, addressing their devotions to Abraham. The rock symbolizes an original narrative that the Jews and Christians already have in common and is naturally inscribed in the new religion.
The founding act of the three monotheisms, the founding act of the covenant between the divine and humans through God's friend Abraham, is this request for the sacrifice of his son and this rock.
So, the whole building is like a cloak that contains a pearl. The dome is a box or a case for that pearl, with the rock at its center.
But the rock has another story. That of the night journey of the Prophet Mohammed. Every year, Muslims celebrate it during a large public festival. On this sacred day, all the followers with their families cross the old city souk in the direction of the esplanade. Celebrated throughout the world, this festival takes on a special dimension in Jerusalem. According to traditional accounts, the night journey took place between Mecca and Jerusalem. The holy city would therefore be the very place from where Mohammed ascended to paradise on a flying horse to meet all the prophets who preceded him, including Jesus and Abraham. On the esplanade, families gather to pray and tell the children about the events of this sacred night.
In those times, the distance between Mecca and Jerusalem required a month's travel by camel, the transport of the time. But God carried the Prophet on the night journey here. In a single night, and even in just part of that night, He made him ascend to heaven. He arrived in heaven, he spoke directly to God during that sacred night. And it was that night that God imposed the 5 prayers that we do every day and every night. So this is a very important event for all Muslims.
Prayer, a pillar of Islam. It is performed 5 times a day in the direction of Mecca. Inside the dome, the women plunge their right hands into an odorous cavity whose perfume, which they bring to their face, is supposed to be that of the Prophet. Another ritual consists of looking at the surface of the rock for a trace of a footprint, however invisible. According to tradition, this imprint is the one left by the Prophet when he ascended into heaven.
Islam is not a religion of incarnation, so one is not supposed to worship relics in any way. At the same time, the faithful need signs. So if one cannot have a religion of relics, but still need signs, what else is there besides footprints? Footprints are prints in the strict sense of the journey of the Prophet on earth. The affirmation of this new religious identity in continuity and confrontation with other religions will also be reflected in architecture. Islam wants to rally new believers. It needs an architectural proposal worthy of its ambitions. Plans, structure. Muslim builders are inspired by the sacred monuments already present, and at the same time, they invent their own codes. We're looking at an octagon. The octagon is the perfect transition between the square and the circle. And we know this very well in Islamic tradition, in religious anthropology. The circle is the divine and the square is the earth. So this octagon, this envelope, is exactly this transition between the earthly world and the world of the divine. The world of the divine is represented by the dome itself, by its perfect circle. The dome of the rock is a point of contact between the divine world and the earthly world.
The originality of the monument, its architectural strength, also rests on all its infinitely worked interior decorations.
The marble was cut in an extraordinary way. It was done in a way which made the veins inside visible. And then, there are also the shapes that have been created by architects and craftsmen, using veins, using marble, and playing with the slices of stones. Of course, this technique is also found in Roman and Byzantine architecture, and craftsmen, Muslim or not, used this model.
For the first monument of the conquering Islam, techniques and materials usually used by Christians are largely reused. Resting on a circular arch of 12 columns and 4 pillars, with a diameter approaching 20 meters, the dome of the monument is as sumptuous inside as it is outside. It is 30 meters high. Its wooden structure is covered with chiseled copper leaves, enhanced with gypsum, and engraved with verses from the Quran. On the sides, the stained glass windows reflect light and the mosaics are omnipresent.
The Dome of the Rock is an excellent example that I will use to highlight the link that exists between continents and between civilizations. Islamic art during the Umayyad period was linked to religion. But it was the artists who decorated and adorned the churches, who converted to the new religion and decorated the Dome of the Rock.
The art of mosaics, inherited from the Byzantine period, is perpetuated in one of the last workshops in Palestine. With the same movements, the same dexterity to cut the tesserae, these fragments of earth and glass, the craftsmen reproduce the most beautiful motifs of the Dome of the Rock in view of the necessary restorations. These mosaics stand out as a signature of Umayyad architecture.
We have the stone mosaic that does not reflect light. The use of glass is related to the light, the luminosity, the lighting of the sacred place. Not only to enlighten us, but also to create an atmosphere. So the lighting we find at the Dome of the Rock was designed to create an atmosphere conducive to worship. For a 10 by 10 centimeter square, we need at least 100 tiles of mosaic. So for 1 squared meter, we need 10,000. And for 1,200 square meters, how many people does it take to cut the tiles and make the mosaic? What they did was astonishing. For the Dome of the Rock, there are not only pieces of glass, there are shells and gold. The mosaicist wanted to represent paradise. We find wheat, we find figs, we find olives. They are the riches of the country, those which people who lived in Palestine ate, but presented on a tray as if to say to us, "This comes to you from the riches of God, so be grateful."
فكن شاكرا له.